Romans, you're like, Pastor Joe, you missed it because creation is in Genesis. And we'll get there eventually. We'll get there eventually. Um, but Paul talks about creation here in Romans. But before we get to Romans chapter 1, verses 18 through 20, the beginning of chapter 1, Paul is writing this letter to the Roman church. Yet he hasn't been there yet. He has the desire to go there. He wants to be there, but he hasn't been there yet. But there's already a church that is there, that is present. And something that's interesting about this is that we're like early on in the early church. Like before Romans, there's only one book of the early church being the church. We have the book of Acts that talks about the early church after the day of Pentecost. And so what happened was at the day of Pentecost, there's all of these believers that had come from all over the place. They heard the truth of Jesus Christ. They gave their lives to Jesus Christ. They became saved. And then they went out and they started their own church in Rome. And so this church didn't need like some educated person, this apostle of Jesus. They didn't need someone like that to come and start something. They heard the truth, and then they lived the truth out in Rome. Now, chances are the church wasn't perfect. They were just trying to do the best that they had. Right? They heard the truth, they spread the truth, and they tried to live it out as best as they could. And so we see that there's a church that was started based off of people that are putting their lives in Jesus Christ. Not waiting for someone else. They're living out their faith. And so Paul genuinely wants to go there. He wants to be with them. And we see that in the beginning of chapter 1, where he says to them, I wish, I'm pleading, I want to be with you, but God hasn't given me the time to be there yet. But he's praying that he can. And the ironic thing is that the time that Paul gets to go to Rome, he gets to go free of charge as a prisoner of Rome. Which we could look at it at two different ways. We could look at it as he saves some money. Like he didn't have to go church to church to raise funds to go on this mission trip. Rome paid for it themselves. And so we see here that Paul wants to go there. He hasn't been there yet. But then as he's working his way through, he gives us, and we're not doing a study of Romans, but he gives us the gist of the book. He gives us the thesis. He gives us the meaning of the book of Romans. And the meaning is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And he gives that to us in verse 16 where he says, I am not ashamed of the gospel, for it is the power of God for salvation to everyone who believes. To the Jew first, and also to the Greek. And so we see that Paul is setting this statement that it's different for society at that time. It's different for our society today because then now we are justified by our works. We're justified, or we justify ourselves in our world today. We are justified by what we do. Yesterday, we had a basketball game. And we've had some rough basketball games. I coached third and fourth grade boys basketball. Listening isn't the top priority for them. I'm getting there. And we've had some games where we had one game where we lost by so many points. And I'm standing there saying, I would call timeout, have them come over. I'm like, all right, we got to do this. And I would draw out the play, tell them what to do. They go out on the court. They did the exact opposite. And I'm yelling. I'm like, go over here, go over here, go over here. And they are doing, and so I just stopped yelling. I'm like, they're not listening to what I'm saying. And I left that game feeling defeated. Left that game feeling like I shouldn't even be a coach. Like, these parents probably hate me. These parents probably think I'm the worst coach. They probably wish that they had the other coach. I mean, I'm nowhere near Barrett Hawes, but they're probably all wishing, man, how come we didn't get on his team? And so I felt that way after that game, and I'm like, I'm ready just to be done. And we had a game yesterday, and the kids just listened, and they did everything we practiced, and they did so good. And we won. And you want to know how I felt after that game? Man, I could coach in the NBA. I'm so good. Where's my promotion? Sooner or later, Mr. Belden's going to retire. I'm next up, all right? Because we just beat Morris. Because it's based off of what I can do, what I bring to the table. And even in the simplest things in life, I'm not getting paid to coach. I'm doing it because I get to. But even that, my worth, my value in it is based off of what I get to produce. And in our world today, and in the world back then, their value of who they were was based off of what they were able to do. And so what Paul's saying here in verse 16 and 17 is something that is completely contrary to what they normally think in everyday life. Because we have to work for what we get. And he's saying that in righteousness of God, it is revealed from faith for faith, as it is written, the righteous shall live by faith. Meaning that God is righteous. He can't get any better than he is. He is perfect. And before Jesus, you had to try to get there. You had to try to get to that perfection. You had to try to get to be righteous, to be able to be okay. Otherwise, we would all be stoned. We wouldn't survive the Old Testament, guys. I would have been done for. I would have been, don't listen to Jenna. We wouldn't survive. We would have been stoned. If we were priests in the temple, we would have been dust. But that bell that's tied to their ankles would have stopped ringing quick. But Paul is saying here is that it's not based off of your works any longer. It's not based off of what you bring to the table anymore. He's saying that the righteousness that God provides, he brings to us. He gives it to you. He places it on you. He gives it to you. And that the righteous now shall live by faith. The righteous shall live by faith. Martin Luther is one of those big name dead people that we should know. We all have dead people that we listen or read to, right? If you don't, find a dead person that you should read that leads you there. Martin Luther is the guy, the Great Reformation. Yeah, he's the guy that flipped the table of what we were doing as the church into what we are today. And prior to him getting this epiphany from God, he is a monk. He is working in the Catholic Church, and he is constantly going to his superiors, repenting of his sins over and over and over and over again. And it's these minute things, and that they're getting tired of him repenting and repenting and repenting of these tiny little things that they're like, can you do something bigger? This isn't that big. And then he gets to this verse in Romans where it says that verse 17, the righteous shall live by faith. It's not all how bad he is. It's not how good he is, but it's what God has done for him. The book of Romans changed Martin Luther's life, that then pressed him to the moment to where he risked everything to share the truth of who Jesus is to the world around us. It's not based off of what we can do, but it's based off of everything that God has already done for us. And so this book of Romans
Paul is walking us through this new understanding of faith in God, that it's not based off of what you get to do or what you have done, but everything being made righteous in God through God. And so then we go to verse 18. So he sets the tone, verse 16, 17, and prior to that, it's all about how gracious God is. It's about how great God is to us and how he has made us pure. He has made us clean through a relationship with him. But then he cuts it here at verse 18, where he's setting like the plows to the ground, where he's saying to us, but it's not a free-for-all here. Because sometimes we can take the grace that God provides to us, the mercy that God provides to us, the righteousness that he gives to us, we take that and then we run with it. And then we run with it and we do everything that we want to do, everything that we think we can do, and we think, well, there's grace for that. But Paul says here in verse 18, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. Now, I want you to understand that Jesus took the wrath that we deserved. When he paid the price on the cross, Jesus took the wrath that we deserved. So I don't want you to leave here thinking, well, if I mess up, then God's wrath is coming at me. Jesus paid that price all those years ago. But the wrath that we see that Paul is talking about here in Romans verse 18, this wrath of God is the wrath of us walking as people that don't know who God is. Right? If we don't walk with that faith and that love and that mercy and that belief that Jesus Christ paid the price for our sins, if we don't walk in that manner, how can Jesus pay the price for the wrath that God had on us if we're not walking in that manner? Does that make sense? Like we want Jesus to take the wrath of God, but then walk like we want to do everything our own way. And it doesn't work that way. We want everything to be okay as we do our own thing, as we live the lives that we want to live. We want everything to work the way that we want it to work, all the while Jesus is saying, hey, I paid the price for you. I took all of the wrath for you, but this is the way that you have to live. You have to be with me. You have to want to be with me. But so you can't have both and. And so Paul here is setting that divider in the middle of saying it's either this or this. You can't mix both. You can't ride in the middle. You can't hang out. I was driving back from Word of Life. I learned the difference of northern New York, central New York. I had learned the difference between central New York and southern New York when I moved here. This week I learned northern New York and central New York. There's a difference between that. And the snow is different. And as I'm driving back from Scroon Lake on Friday afternoon, I'm driving and I have to stay in my tire lanes. And every time I went off of those tire lanes and tried to switch lanes, that's when my car started to do this. Or that's when the tractor trailers on the other side of me honked their horns and yelled at me so that I would go back to where I'm supposed to be. And it's the same picture of what Paul is setting here, in that if we're in the middle, it doesn't make it better. It's still a mess. If you're in the middle, you're still over here. You have to either be here or you're all the way over here. And if I wasn't in my tire lanes, if I wasn't where I was supposed to be, it was a mess. And I think that we can walk through life, and even in the mess of life, we could see that sometimes we've created our own mess. But then we like to say, well, God, where are you? And God's saying, I haven't moved. I've been here the whole time. You're the one that moved. You're the one that's skirting the line. You're the one that's driving through the mush. You're the one that's doing and making the mistakes that you're making. doesn't mean that God's wrath is poured out onto you even more. It means that we're not walking in his path that he has for us, that Jesus has already taken. And so Paul says, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, the things that we can't see, this is the cool part. God's attributes are invisible. We can't fully know God, but then Paul says for his invisible attributes, meaning the things that we shouldn't be able to see, the things that we can't see, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse. Meaning, like, God is much bigger, better than us, but in his creation, he created creation in the manner that he created it so that we could get a glimpse of who he is. Right? We walk through life and we wonder, well, we ask the questions, where is God? When is he going to tell me what he wants me to do? When is he going to provide for me? When is he going to take care of me? When is he going to follow through? When is he going to do this? When is he going to do that? When is he going to show up? When is he going to heal people? When is he going to take care of the sicknesses? When is he going to take care of all the problems that we have in the world? When is he going to make peace happen here on earth? And we have all of these questions of where God is, but we're not willing to look at creation and see what he has already displayed for us. He has shown us by his creation. We serve a God that loves us enough to create everything in a manner so that we could see the invisible things that we shouldn't be able to see. And we are without excuse. And the things that we can see, now listen, just because Paul says here that we can see God, doesn't mean that ends our pursuit after him. So he says that we can see his eternal power and his divine nature. So we can see two aspects of who God is. We get to see his eternal power. We get to see what he's capable of doing. And so you may ask, well, how do we see his eternal power? Well, we could see that he was able to create everything out of nothing. Last time I checked, I can't put a boxed thing, you name it, a basketball hoop, a shelf, you pick the simplest thing. I can't put that thing together the first time the right way, ever. With the instructions, I put them out, I look at them, I am a instruction follower, and you could color code it, you could put pictures, you could hand me the parts and say, do this. And I guarantee you, I will put it upside down the first time. Every time. It never fails. And so then we think, I'm sure some of you are much better builders than I. But we have the nerve to question God's eternal power and his creation when he created all of this. Out of nothing. All of this, we're going to go, I promise you, we're going to go to Genesis 1, and we can marvel at the order that God created all of creation in. We're going to do that in 1 minute. But his eternal power, we question his power, his abilities, and I can't even put things together the right way with instructions. Like, who am I? And then Paul says, and his divine nature. His divine nature, such as like faithfulness, how faithful God is. You remember, like, he promised Noah after the flood, he promised that he would never do that again. And how faithful he has been since that moment to today, that we've never had to deal with that again. the grace, the mercy, the patience he has shown upon us, that he could end it all again. Because I guarantee you we haven't gotten much better. He could have ended it all again, and he promised that he wouldn't, and he hasn't. He is a faithful, he is a kind, and he is a gracious God. But let's go to Genesis 1. Did they show up, Tracy? Yes? Yes. Technology is working this morning, guys. I added these in from my office and praying that it would speak. I don't even understand how it works. Speak from there through the air to Tracy, and it did. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, meaning there's nothing. There's nothing. There's no light. It was darkness was over the face of the deep. And you may ask, what's the deep? People at NASA are constantly finding space goes deeper and deeper and deeper. They found this hole, this black hole that they could see through, and as they see through it, all they could see is space. And then you look at, we call it space, but you think of what space is. What is space? Space is just space. And so, like, you could keep going deeper and deeper, and then your head is just going to hurt that how big everything is, because we like to have instructions. We like to have everything right here. We like to be able to have control over and grasp a hold of everything. But then when we look at creation, even in Genesis 1, we see that it's just wide open. Where does it end? I don't know. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. Pretty cool, right? Like he knew that we needed to have a difference between telling what night and day is. I've never been, but I've heard, like in Alaska, when it can mess with you when they don't have like light and they don't have a morning and a day, like the sun and the moon. It's either all light for a while, or I'm speaking from just generalizations, or darkness for a while. It messes with their minds. It messes with their emotions. It messes with our emotions here in central New York when it's snowing for months at a time. It doesn't stop. Right? Like when it's great. We even have sunlight and we have darkness, and that messes with us. But God knew that we needed a difference between morning, daytime, and nighttime. He knew that we needed something to tell us when the day was over with. Interesting, right? Interesting that he also knew that we needed both and for our bodies to work the way that they worked. First day. God said, "Let there be an expanse in the midst of the waters, and let it separate the waters from the waters." And God made the expanse and separated the waters that were under the expanse from the waters that were above the expanse, and it was so. And God called the expanse heaven, and there was evening and there was morning the second day. And God said, "Let the waters under the heavens be gathered together into one place, and let the dry land appear." And it was so, because he knew eventually he was creating humans, and he knew that we can't live in water. He knew that we needed land to walk on, but he also knew that we needed water at the same time. And it was so. God called the dry land earth, and the waters that were gathered together he called seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit, in which is their seed, each according to its kind on the earth." And it was so. And so he almost knew that as he created these plants, as he created land, that water needed to be there first for those things to grow. What else do plants need to grow? Sunlight. What do humans, we're going to get there. And it was so. The earth brought forth vegetation, plants yielding seed according to their own kinds, and the trees bearing fruit in which is their seed, each according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And so he almost created creation to be able to live off of itself. Interesting. And there was evening, and there was morning the third day. And God said, let there be lights in the expanse of the heavens to separate the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. And let them be lights in the expanse of the heavens to give light upon the earth, and it was so. And God made the two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night, and the stars. And God set them in the expanse of the heavens to give light on the earth. And so God almost knew that we needed those things to be able to travel. He almost knew that we needed those things to survive off of. And he placed those things in the space, in the expanse, in the right places so that we could use them for the way that he has created us to live. Louis Giglio does a bunch of stuff with space and stars and planets, and he talks about God's glory and all of that. And we have this devotional that we just did the other day with the kids, where he talked about the star in space that blew up. And it blew up, and it spun so fast when it blew up. It spun so fast that it was going 11 rotations per second. Yes, it collapsed in on itself. Yes, I'm sorry. Exploded inside. Collapsed. And then spun 11 times per second. And at first, I'm like, that's not that fast. And then I took my finger, and I'm like, how many times can I spin it in 1 second? Why don't you guys try it? Spin your finger 11 times per second. Can't do it. How many did you get? 2? 3? And so imagine 11 times per second, and this thing is spinning. But we have the technology today that we have these satellites that we could pick up sounds from space, and this star, in the speed that it was going, was making this repetitive. And how cool and how great that is. Not if only those are just for us to see God's glory. Right? To hear them operating in the manner that he has created them to operate. Right? We can look at it in multiple different ways of what God created those things for. I just love to get out of my car and stare up at the sky. I don't know the last time I used a star to tell me where to go. But before I had technology, people used those things. If I didn't have the sun telling me when it was daytime, I probably could live my life thinking it was nighttime all the time. And how miserable we would be as people. We would go hungry. We wouldn't have food. Our plants would end up dying. Jenna has these really cool purple lights that she puts over top of plants during the winter that helps keep them growing. But if we didn't have the sun, the plants outside, we don't have enough purple lights to shine on these things. We need the sun that God has created. And there is evening, there is morning, the fourth day. God said, let the water swarm, the swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth to cross the expanse of the heavens. And so God created the great sea creatures and every living creature that moves with which the waters swarm according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And so he had created these plants that have seeds, but he also created these birds and these things that fly in the sky and these animals that are inside of the water, these fish and creatures or whatever. We're constantly finding more creatures in the sea that we didn't know we had before. Because how deep the depths of the ocean are, we just keep learning different creatures that God has created, each with a certain purpose. And each bird and each insect, each fly, each bee that flies through the sky, they all have their purposes that all operate in the same way. That if God created one before the other, wouldn't be able to survive. He couldn't have created the fish without the water. And God just didn't go like this and it was all there. He created them step by step by step because they all needed certain things before the other. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the waters in the seas and let birds multiply on the earth." And there was evening and there was morning the fifth day. And God said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures according to their kinds, livestock, creeping things, beasts of the earth according to their kinds." And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to their kinds, and the livestock according to their kinds, and everything that creeps on the ground according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness. And let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." And sometimes I look at this and I'm like, man, I just wish God would have created us before all of this so that we could see what it looked like. Imagine being present, like to see this, like, did it just pop? Like, did we see it grow? Imagine Adam being able to see all of this stuff. But then I think, wait, we couldn't have survived beforehand because, one, we need water. Two, we need land to walk on. Three, we need oxygen. And how do we have oxygen? From the trees. And so we needed the plants. The plants needed the water. The plants really needed the ground too. They all needed to work together. All of the stuff had to happen in the way that it happened. And God created us not just by chance on this day, but he created us on purpose on this day, for a reason on this day, because he knew that this is what we needed. And so God created man in his own image. And in the image of God, he created a male and female, he created them. And God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on the earth." And God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to every creeping thing that creeps on the earth, everything that has breath of life, I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. And God saw that everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning the sixth day. And on the seventh day, God rests. Not because he was tired, not because he needed to, but because he was setting a precedent for us of our lives, and that we must have a time of rest, not to regain strength physically, but we need to rest in his glory. We need to rest in what he has created. God didn't rest on the seventh day because he was exhausted. God rested on the seventh day to bask in what he has created. And so when we rest on the seventh day, when you rest, you pick your day of Sabbath. When you rest, we aren't resting to be rejuvenated. We're not resting just to be like, I did too much. We're resting to bask in the glory of what God has provided for us, because as we walk every day, we should be people that are walking with this understanding that God has created all of this for us, and that everything we do, we get to do because he has given us the ability to do it. He made it, everything that he made, it says it was good. On the sixth day, it was very good. We made it bad. We messed it up. From the beginning, God made everything to work in a way that we had it all set. And I know we go out in the world and someone's going to say, well, here's this argument to creation. There's always going to be an argument to creation. There's arguments on the side of creation of how God created everything. Like some people believe that God created everything all at once. Some people believe that God actually took 7 days. And we can fight about it. We can argue about it. The truth is, science side, as they get closer to wrapping their heads around it, their conclusions to what they're wrapping their heads around isn't what they want. So they keep pushing the dates of things being created further and further and further. We're up to billions of years that this earth has been created. And so part of that reason is because we can't wrap our heads around what God has created. We don't want to admit that God created it. And so we have to push the timeline back because we're so complex of creation. This world is so complex that as we get to somewhat of an understanding, we can't understand it. It doesn't fit into our ideas of how we can try to make it work, so that we have to push the date further and further back. And so scientists are disproving scientists, and I promise you that eventually we're going to get to the day where we're saying 1 billion years isn't enough. And we're going to have to go further out. Because we're unwilling to admit that God created all of this to operate the way that he has created it. But we messed it up. We messed it up. And we see that in verse 21 of Romans. We got to go back. Prior to 21, Paul says that we are without excuse, knowing that God is God, that God is real. When we look at creation, if we're looking at it without any like thought process of this is wrong, this is right. If we look at creation in itself, if we look at everything in the world in itself, it screams of a creator. If you have something that's created, it has to be created by someone. And so Paul's saying, when you look at creation without all of these other things, all of these other notions, all of this other knowledge, you look simply at creation, it screams of a creator. So you're without excuse that there is no God. And so when we look at it, there has to be. For although, in verse 21, they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. And this is the problem. And this was the problem in the beginning. This is the problem today, in that we're unwilling to walk in the manner that God has set for us. We're unwilling to look at it through the lens that God has set for us to look through, but we want to look through it in our own minds. What we deserve. And that what we deserve goes both ways very quickly. Right? I gave you that example of my third and fourth grade basketball team. And 1 week I feel like I'm the worst and I should never coach a sport again. The next week I feel like I'm the best. I'm better than Coach K. I should be on the pinnacle of coaching. And so that line goes both ways. They became futile in their thinking and foolish, and their hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools. And they exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal men and birds and animals and creeping things. We walk through life long enough, we become full of ourselves. Like when we can't take a step back and look at creation, admitting that there's a creator, when we can't do that, we start looking at, well, what did we do? What did we have a hand in? What did I do in this? And then we start then taking it from God did all of this to Joe. Or you fill in your name. And we start then, the moment that our person comes into this. And so really, first in Romans, when he starts us in verse 16, when he says that righteousness was given to us by God, like we have to operate in that mindset, because the moment that we say we did enough, we did this, we made the decision, I'm a better Christian today than I was yesterday because I did this, and that. Anyone ever do that? Come on. Like, or you just say, I'm not worthy enough because I did this, and this. Come on. There's nothing that we could do. We have to take us out of the picture, because it's everything that God has done from the beginning of time. We had nothing to do with it. God created us last. And he gave us a job, and we screwed that job up too. Because we like to make ourselves bigger than. Right? He gave us a simple job, take care of the stuff here on the land. And then we were like, jeez, look at me. I get to name these animals. I get to take care of these plants. I get to take care of all this other stuff. Man, I'm doing pretty good. And that's our frame of thought that goes. And so what Paul is trying to tell us here is that we have to choose to keep our eyes on God. We have to have our eyes on Jesus. Our perception can't be on what we bring to the table. Like this morning, my initial complaint. Anyone else like to complain? Anyone else like to say, like, this is what we're against? If you had people around you and you got to ask them a question, if you had to ask them, do they know more about what you're against or what you're for, what do you think they would say? Would they know more what you're against, or would they know more of what you're for? Best way to do that is not to be present for that. You want them to say those things without you there, because then they don't feel that pressure. They're going to hurt your feelings. Chances are, and I'm sure it's not the case for you. Chances are, they're going to know what we're against more than what we're for. We're really good at, as believers, to say, this is what I stand for. This is what I stand against. This is what I don't believe this. I don't believe this. I don't believe this. I don't believe this. And every time we say it, we add the I. The I. The I. The I. And as the I comes in, that's where we get full of ourselves. Can we go back to the beginning of Romans? Is that okay? We're going to go back to the beginning of Romans. Paul, servant of Christ, this is the beginning. I love that these Old Testament letters, they tell us who sent the letter in the beginning, most of the time. They tell us who sent it in the beginning. We write letters today. Where do we put our names? At the end. Imagine being back then, getting a letter from Paul, like this huge thing, and then you not knowing who wrote it, because he put his name at the end. He put it at the beginning, so they knew ahead of time. Paul, called to be an apostle, set apart from the gospel for the gospel of God, right there. Does it say, Paul, a servant of Christ, called to be an apostle, set apart because of this, 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 because of this? What does it say? It says, set apart for the gospel of God. Paul wasn't known for what he stood against. Paul was known for what he stood for. And so for us to walk through life, the question, I got three things for you that I'm going to leave you with this morning from this message from Paul of creation. Okay, his message of creation, of seeing God. How do we see God in everything? How do we walk in that manner? How do we walk in a manner that seems righteous to God? How do we walk in that way? The first thing is we got to start living a life that people know us for what we stand for and not what we stand against. I found out, you guys remember the Cracker Barrel incident with they created that new logo, and how many of you guys were so mad about that? Anyone mad about that? Raise your hand if it's okay. I got mad at one point. Why are you ruining our logo? Right? You want to know what I found out the other day? You guys ready to be mad? The majority of the people that started that argument on Cracker Barrel's logo weren't real. They were bots on the internet that got us riled up, that got us mad. Chances are, if those bots never said anything, we wouldn't have been mad about the logo. What we do as people is we're so good at saying this is what we're against, and we get so mad about it. We have to fight about those things. But if we were too busy saying this is what we stand for, if we said we stand for the rights of all humanity, guess what? Our debates and our fights over illegal immigration would be a whole lot different. If we could stand and we could say, we're for taking care of people, we're for this, rather than saying, I'm against this, I'm against this, I'm against this, both sides of the aisle, before you get mad at me, both sides of the aisle, we're really good at saying, we're against this. Rather than, man, God created us all in his image. That's a different kind of conversation. Same thing with homosexuality, same thing with all those big sins that we have, same thing with pornography, same thing with you name it. If our stances were, I am set apart for the gospel of God, our conversation is different. Our arguments are different. Our fights are different. Can you imagine the church caring for people because we stand for what God has done for us? We know that Jesus has said that the world has hated him, so they're going to hate. We know that. But we shouldn't be looking for that hatred. We shouldn't. I feel like sometimes we search out for that hatred. Sometimes we want to make it happen a little bit faster than we just want to. It's kind of like the Band-Aid thing, right? We just want to rip that Band-Aid off, so we create our own hatred so that we can get past it already. But we're supposed to stand for what God stands for. People should know what we stand for, not just what we stand against. And it makes me think back to the guy that he was healed by Jesus from the demon. He had demons inside of him. Jesus cast the demons out of him, and he wanted to go with Jesus. He wanted to go, and Jesus said, no, you need to go back and you need to tell them what I've done. You need to tell the people around you what I've done. We should be more concerned telling people about what Jesus has done for them rather than telling them the things that Jesus has said, you got to stop doing those things. Start with, Jesus paid the price for all of us. We're all sin-cursed human beings. We all need the grace and the mercy of God. We are not righteous unless he imparts that righteousness on us. Start with that conversation. Start with that conversation of, let me tell you about the love and the hope of Jesus that paid the price for me, that set me on a different path. The second thing, we have to stop complaining. If you're honest with yourself, what's the most common thing that comes out of your mouth? If I'm honest, one of the most common things is just this morning, I looked out the window And I said, man, the road is covered. It's snowing again. It's snowing again. And I said to Jenna, one of my points this morning is to stop complaining. And I said, God gave us the means to buy snow boots that I put on my feet. God gave us the means to buy a coat that I could put on, and so I'm not going to be that cold when I go out. God gave us the means to have a car that has heat. And he gave us a great mechanic that takes very good care of us and makes sure that we're safe while we drive down the road. And so that I know that I'm safe going from our house to the church. And I had to actively stop myself from complaining about things and replace it with praises to him of what he has done and what he has given to me today, even though it may be miserable outside. Does that make sense? All perspective. Philippians 2:14 says, do all things without grumbling or disputing. Ephesians 4:29, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up, as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. If we walk in this manner, our lives are different. But to be able to walk in this manner, we also have to be people that are looking at what God has done. We have to be able to walk in a manner that says God is real, and what he has said is true, and what he directs is true. We have to walk in that manner. Otherwise, we're walking in ourselves. We can't then not do that. If we're walking in ourselves, we're walking with, well, this is what I deserve. Because this morning, I deserved a clear road, the sun shining where I could wear shorts, sandals. Can't be in New York. That's what I deserve. In my head, that's what I deserve. And chances are we have all of our own deserving things in our own heads. We have to get out of our heads. We have to get into what God has done and what God is providing and what God is doing. Because what he is doing is perfect still. We mess it up. What he's doing is still good and still perfect. Ephesians 4, let no corrupting talk. We got to stop doing those things. And we have to actively, it's like when Paul said, these are the things that we see from God. It's not everything that we're ever going to see. It's not the end all. It doesn't mean that we never read the Bible, because we could see that he has created these things. We don't stop reading. We don't stop studying. We don't stop trying to get more of who he is. We keep going after those things, just like as we get saved. We don't just stop. It's not like if we're perfect from the beginning. We have to work towards it. We have to actively pursue those things. We have to actively stop ourselves from complaining. We have to have things in our lives that say, all right, I got to stop doing this. And it was cheesy this morning, but it gave me a much better perspective as I'm driving in here today of all of the things that he has done. The last thing is we have to start praising God for what he is doing. So we have to stop telling everyone what you're against. We have to stop complaining, but we have to start praising God for what he is doing. It's really difficult to complain when you're praising. It's really difficult to say what you don't stand for when you're praising God for what he's doing. Does that make sense? And he says that in Romans 1. He wants to go to Rome so bad. Paul wants to be there. Romans 1, verse 8, he says, first, I thank my God through Jesus Christ for all of you, because your faith is proclaimed in all the world. For God is my witness, whom I serve with my spirit in the gospel of his Son, that without ceasing I mention you. God, he wants to go there. He wants to be with them. You ever want to be with somebody so bad? You ever want to go somewhere where you do everything that you can? And Paul's saying, I want to be there, but I can't. Verse 10. You're always in my prayers, asking that somehow, by God's will, I may now at least succeed in coming to you. For I long to see you, that I may impart to you some spiritual gift to strengthen you. That is, that we may be mutually encouraged by each other's faith, both yours and mine. I do not want you to be unaware, brothers, that I have often intended to come to you, but thus far have been prevented, in order that I may reap some harvest among you as well as among the rest of the Gentiles. But I am under obligation both to Greeks and to barbarians, both to wise and to the foolish. So I am eager to preach the gospel to you also who are in Rome. Paul is praising God even though he's not getting what he wants. And when he gets there, his plan is to praise God even more. It's not to have a good time. It's not to have a good drink. It's not to have a party. It's to praise God for what God is doing. He wants to be a part of it. He wants to praise God for what he is doing even when he's not getting what he wants. We have to be people that we have to be people that are stopping telling everyone what we're against. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of Facebook. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted of the complaints. I'm exhausted of the arguments. I'm exhausted of. It's tiring. We have to be different. We have to stop complaining. And we have to start praising God for what he is doing. And if you look around in your life and you can't find something, but you call yourself a Christ follower, that's the best thing you can praise God for today. And if you haven't made that decision, take Christ as your Lord and Savior, to accept what he has given to you. In Kenny Lowe's words, you better be getting to it. I feel like he says it every week. Well, let me pray for you. God, we love you. God, we are grateful to be able to worship you. God, we are grateful to be able to be here, to be in your word, to be here, to sing praises to you. God, I pray that, God, we could be people that walk today. We could be people that walk tomorrow, that as people see us, they would see us as looking kind of weird, because we're no longer willing to walk in this manner of life that's all about us, that's all about what I need and what I want and what I deserve and what I should have and what I should get. God, and we should walk as people that are praising you for who you are. We should be praising you for what you continue to do in our lives. God, that we could be people that are just basking in what you have done in our lives, so that, God, as we walk through the mess of this world, God, you didn't create the mess, we created the mess, and we're just stuck in the in-between of the not yet and the already. And God, I just pray that as we walk through the muck of this world, the mess of this world, God, that we could be the light that you have created us to be. God, that we could just be that light through the fog to show them that there's a better way. And the better way isn't because I've done anything great, but it's because you did everything great. God, that we could show them the same love that you poured out for us, that, God, you sent your son to die for us so that we could have a life with you. God, there's forgiveness in your name. God, there's restoration in your name. And God, I pray that as we go through life, that we could walk in a manner that we could see the grace, the mercy, the forgiveness, the restoration that you provide. And God, that we could be grateful of that, but God, we could also display that to the world around us. And God, I pray that if any of us are walking in a manner of life today where we've just never grabbed a hold of what you have given to us, God, we can know that you're not that far away. And God, you say that all we need to do is believe that Jesus paid the price for our sins. We need to confess our sins to you, and that we will be forgiven and we will be made whole. God, we love you. We pray this in your name. Amen.